Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Dominic, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
I'm absolutely delighted to be here.
This is going to be fun. Let's jump straight into it. You've scaled businesses yourself before becoming a coach, So what got you into, helping people scale instead of just growing?
Helping them scale rather than grow, or why did I become a coach?
You know what? Both. I'm just taking the headlines of your website.
Okay. Well, do you know what? I'm completely by accident. I had no intention of ever becoming a coach.
Okay.
But when we sold the last business, and we were just chatting, as we exited that business, we were just chatting before we went live about, I was in the States and we moved back with, I had a new baby. And so I just thought, you know what, I've exited the business. We've got a new baby's been born. My wife said, you know what, maybe you should do something different until the kids, because we're going to have more than one, right? So until the kids, so over the next 5 or 6 years, maybe you should do something different before you get a proper job again and you're a global tech CEO again. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll do that. So I'll do some consulting and I'll do some non-exec stuff. And then that non-exec stuff really drove me demented, because I'm in boardrooms and people are turning up and they're doing presentations and I'm like, you're not very good at this, you bitch shit. But there's no, in the boardroom, there's no then opportunity to make them better on the outside of that, because typically you're doing a day a month or a day a quarter or whatever for somebody. And so in the end, I just went, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to be in other people's boardrooms. I'm going to coach the CEO to be better, and I'll coach their teams to be better. And then I just won't come to the boardroom. I won't come to the board meeting, because that's just not very exciting. And so I ended up coaching, and then that turned into something that it's the longest job I've ever had. It's the most rewarding job I've ever had. And, some clients have stuck with us for, more than 10 years. And so, I build the relationships I build there are because when I look at the businesses I've built, the revenue was great and profitability was great. And, but the thing that would really, really made me excited and gave me shivers down my spine is if I'm interviewing somebody and I'm sitting there going, oh man, you're amazing. You are so good and you have no friggin' idea how good you are. And I need to hire you. And then I hire them. And then, their sort of personal trajectory is up, but flattish, this is where I am and this is where I might be in 2 or 3. And in my mind, I'm going, your trajectory could be like this. And then you hire them and you give them the opportunity and they take it and they take it and they take it. And they go from sort of engineer to director in 3 years, and they'd never, ever thought they could be, engineering director in a business. And you go, that helping them change their lives is where I used to got the biggest kick. And so now I do that. I work with the CEO and their team and help the CEO and their teams have that sort of same trajectory. So it's just so much fun. And I'm insanely curious about business. So, even sales calls, I love sales calls, but because I get to talk to people about their business, so they love their business and I love business. So we get an hour where they tell me, and I'm constantly going, so what do you do? And pattern matching, thinking about a problem we've solved in one industry and could we use it over here, which is in a different industry, in a different space. And so that's great fun. Working in education has been great like that, where you just take standard business stuff and apply it to education, where people go, that's amazing. You're like, okay, well, it might be for you. It's pretty ordinary over here, but, transformative over there. So great fun.
Do you think curiosity is important to do what you do?
It's important to me. It's on here. So we like a tool called Gallup Strengths, right? And so I have one of my strengths is input. And people with input love to just gather in a whole load of information and synthesize it and then share it. So before I was a coach, there was no outlet out, you could potentially win a pub quiz, I guess. And so, like I know the last time for which information was available, 177 people died crossing the road in the UK at a zebra crossing. Like once I've read that, I can't unknow it, but it's not very helpful. But now I can pull in, I'm an insatiable reader. So I might read 2 books a week, and I'll synthesize those and I'll share them with people. This fantastic book called Revenue Architecture, right? It is a massive book. It's an A4
massive
size, right? And it's about 2 inches thick, right? So I've read that, and many of our clients who've got SaaS businesses, and I've then gifted it to them, or at least I might even have synthesized it for them. But it's just they would never have picked that book up and read it if I hadn't read it and then told them that it was the book that would fix the problem that they had. So, they might read 12 books a year. I've read, 100 or whatever it might be. And, it's like they're reading a tiny fraction of what, but I'm going, no, you need to read this book next, or this book next. Or so, I don't, and somebody has a problem and I'm thinking about it and I go, okay, I've got the solution to their problem. They're running their business. I've got more time than them, but certainly because I'm working with, 20 odd clients at a time, you've got repeat problems. And then sometimes you get a client who's got this unique new problem. You're like, okay, I'm going to think about that because I need to fix that. So,
I mean, at the end of the day, don't you end up having to solve the same problem just with a bit of a different tweak all the time?
A bit of that. There's a bit of that, like people,
which is fine. Huh? I'm just curious. Like, isn't it always the same thing?
Yeah, it is. But you then sort of go. So if I think about where AI has had a big impact recently, right? So ChatGPT comes out, and you think, well, how could I do that? So you would think people would have sorted out how to hire amazing talent, right? It's the number one problem you have in your business, and businesses have existed for a long time, and you'd think we'd have worked out how to get it right. I mean, the data says people get it right about 1 in 4. The person that they hire is the person that they wanted to hire, looking back after sort of 12 months. And so I've built some AI-based tools that help people write a job scorecard, write a job ad, screen the candidates, and then write interview questions. And so most people, it's not hard to write a job scorecard, but often we would find clients intellectually, they'd agree with me that this was a thing that they were going to do, but then they wouldn't do it. And so they'd still have a shitty job ad. And then nobody's been trained on how to do interviews. So what we end up doing is I meet you, I have a conversation with you, and I go, you were quite likable. So I end up hiring for likability rather than the job that you need, the job I need you to do. And so how can we just make that easier for people? And so, I built some of those tools. And so it's like, how do we solve the problem and get better at solving the problem is something that I noodle on quite a lot.
Who is it that you help specifically, Dominic? Do you have like a niche, industry, company size, job title? Like who do you work with?
It's taken a little while to work out where I feel like I bring the most value and where I have the most fun. And so, we've worked with small businesses, £1 million turnover, and we've worked with some of the UK's largest privately held businesses who turn over £3 billion a year. So all sizes, all scales, multiple industries. But my niche now is it's people in what I call no man's land, which is the bit under 100. I think there's an inflection point at about 100 employees because the complexity comes from people, not from revenue. And so, if you get through what Daniel Priestley calls crossing the desert, so you come out of that, 30 to 50 people, you've crossed the desert, and then there's 100 where there's an inflection point. So it's in that scaling up. So startup, finished, scaling up through 100, because at that level you're playing basketball. There's maybe you've got some co-founders, but you're involved in everything, and you get the business to about 70 people, and then it gets really hard again. Like it was hard, it gets easier and it gets hard again. And people are like, hang on, it was working. Why has it stopped working? And it's because you've now got a set of leaders and a set of managers. And we need to get the CEO founder off the field. Like there's nobody in the Premier League. There's no manager in the Premier League who's still on the field, right? I need to get the leaders to step up and deliver the thing that they're supposed to be delivering, have ownership of it. And so that sort of transition from basketball to football is my sweet spot, working with the founder and probably their leadership team.
Sorry, you threw me off with the Premier League. I'm disappointed you didn't say a Ligue 1, but that's fine. I guess that's, that's where our differences come from. How do you, and that's going to be interesting, how do you market? How do you get those, I suspect, CEOs, founders, leadership teams who are stuck at those different sections, parts of their journeys? How do you get their attention? What has worked for you to get those CEOs to raise their hand and be like, Dominic, I need a book summary or recommendation, and then potentially some help?
So historically it was word of mouth at the beginning. The two businesses that I'd scaled to 30 million were both tech firms. And so I was pretty well connected with people in the UK, in tech, private equity as well. And that community would introduce me to people. More latterly, we've done, we now run ads at the front end. But, I've also know that if I'm putting out content regularly on LinkedIn and we do a newsletter and we do a blog, I've written a couple of books, people will hit me on LinkedIn and go, hey, could I buy you a coffee? And it's like, that means I'd like to hire you as a coach. They don't know that that's what that means. But when somebody says, hey, look, we don't know each other, could we chat? They're thinking, right, well, let's get hired. We get emails through from the website saying, can we hire you? Book a call through the website. People turn up in my inbox, one or two a week. The other thing that's happened, which is totally new, so that all of that activity would drive UK CEOs. What's happened in the last maybe 9 months is people in the UK and people outside the UK are finding us on ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or Gemini. They're finding. So we've now got clients in Israel, and we're just talking to some people who are in Romania, and so that's totally different. So that's a thing that we weren't paying any attention to, and now we are, because it's like, okay, let's focus the blog. 60% of our website, organic website traffic, comes from the US, and I've got nothing to sell people in the US. And now we're being found globally, by people who would never have, anything that we had written on Google would never have turned up in a Romanian search if people had historically been using, it's only because the guy in Romania is searching on, I don't know, ChatGPT or something that he found us. So that's absolutely fascinating. So it's like, well, if that's working and we've closed a couple of bits of business in the last 6 months, like let's do more of that. So that's a completely new thing that we haven't done before.
I love that. You have a podcast since 2018.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, do you know what? It's that I think on the first episode, 5 people listened, but it was accidental, because I knew I needed to write a blog and a newsletter, or I had decided, I don't know if I knew I needed to, but I decided that that's what I was going to do. And so I hired somebody to help me do that, because I'm dyslexic. Like the idea of writing a 1,400 words thing, that would take me a whole week, and I don't have a whole week to do it because I've got a job. So I hired somebody who could interview me and then turn that into a blog. So it's my ideas, my thoughts, but like somebody does the transcribing of my ideas into something. And so I hired a lady who was a radio journalist, and Louise came on board, and she said, oh, we need a podcast as well. If we're doing a blog, my background is such. And so, and then after a couple of weeks, she said, you know what, working for you is not really that interesting, so I'm leaving. And so that left me with a blog and a podcast. And it was like, okay, I hate to be defeated. And I had enjoyed the podcast. So I've hired somebody to do the copywriting, and I hired an agency to work with the podcast. And then we've been doing it ever since. And, I still think that in a way, I don't care that people listen or don't listen. I mean, they do. And we're I don't know, we sort of drop in and out we're in the sort of top 100 UK business podcasts. But what I love having those conversations with people. So at the beginning, it was all of the people behind me here are all the books by people who've been on the podcast. But now where our focus is on sort of UK CEOs who've scaled and maybe exited. So I can go and pick their brains, particularly about the niche that I work with now. Whereas at the beginning, I sort of would work with anybody and talk to anybody. But now it's the podcast and the niche sort of have coalesced, and it's called Scale to Win. So, but it's great just picking people's brains to say, how did your leadership team develop? Again, just to use a football analogy, like if we're in Division 3 and we want to be in the Premier League, that's sort of analogous of maybe scaling a business. How many people on the field when you in your Division 3 days would still be with you while you're in the Premier League? And if you're going to have to swap people in and out, are you going to do that consciously, and what's the plan? And quite often people have never thought about that. They just go, here's my team. I want this team to take us from 50 to 250 million or 50 to 250 people. And it's like, do you know what? You're probably going to get there because it's your business. But how many of these your current leaders are going to go through on that journey with you? And what are you going to do when you need to remove some of them from the leadership team? Because that's tough.
It is. How you mentioned that you love sales, Dominic. How do you do sales? How do you move from an ad, someone finding out about you on ChatGPT, someone finding out about you on your website, your content, your podcast? How do you go from that to a conversation, a sales conversation, an SOW, a letter of engagement? We rock and roll. How do you make sales work?
I try to make the content on the front end about the problem that they might have, rather than the features and benefits of the thing that we're trying to sell. So often I meet people and they're saying sales isn't working, and it's because they've, we make cups and we're trying to sell cups, and it's like, and so you have coaches who've designed a coaching program, or we've got clients who have a thing and they're trying to sell a thing, and they're going, the problem is sales, they can't sell. I'm like, you built a thing in the dark without no customer input, and the value proposition may or may not be there. You might not even have one. And so, eating our own dog food, try to develop a value proposition. There are things that people will search for because they think that's the solution to their problem, like business coaching. So, let's show up where people go searching for business coaching because they think that's the solution to their problem. But then we're not selling business coaching because that's a commodity. I'd rather sell an outcome. So I might say, look, if you never made a wrong hire again, what would that be worth to you? Right. So people can easily think about how many wrong hires they've made in the last 12 months and what their growth plans are. And so what if we could make hiring foolproof? What would that be worth? Because I'm always trying to get a 10x outcome. Like whatever our fee structure is, I want people to think about a 10x outcome. I was just on the phone with somebody earlier, and I remember talking to Barnaby and saying, what's the number that we should track? And he said, if you could help us change our 6-month retention from 86 to 92, it's worth $10 million, right? I'm not going to charge him $10 million. I'm going to charge him a fraction of that. So the ROI is really clear. So if I can help them understand, or time, I remember somebody rang me up and they said, look, Dom, I'm working 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's like, okay, well, I could get you a day back. Ideally, I'll get you to be able to run your business 2 days a week. That's our focus. But I can get you a day back straight away in the next 90 days. And so then it's not about the money. Like if you're trying to sell a commodity, it'll always end up being about price. If you're trying to sell an outcome, it's what's it worth to them. Now, sometimes people go, Dom, you're really expensive, to which I say yes. But we've got enough demand that allows us to be, premium supplier. Because I also think there's I think charging more gets your clients' attention. Maybe it gets them to work harder, take it more seriously. So that's, I think, part of the success as well. I don't necessarily know that the tools and the methodology are the difference between success and failure, but I think part of it is getting our clients to take it seriously, show up and do the work. And a coach once said to me, Dom, the best thing you can do about being successful is pick better clients. And so the fee structure that we have probably means that we're working with better clients. I would say now, today, it's the best group of clients we've ever worked with. So, we've got the UK's #1 provider of managed services in security. We've got the UK's #1 luxury travel agent in North American market. We've got the UK's #1 travel franchise. We've got the UK's #1 provider of managed services in the ServiceNow space. So like we've got a client out offshore partner in the Philippines. They're best place to work in the Philippines 5 years running. So they're all, very successful, fast growing businesses. I mean, none of them you would have heard of, but in their niche, they're all #1, and that's fab.
There might be a common denominator as well. Just saying.
Maybe. But actually, one of the things that I was going to say was that, I printed it out because I thought it was really helpful. So Michael Bungay Stanier has a book called Coaching Habit. Mm-hmm. And he says coaching is, he says, I can teach you to be a coach in 30 minutes. And he says, look, there are 7 questions. What's on your mind and what else? What's the real challenge for you? What do you want? How can I help? And if you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? And was that useful? Right. And they're his 7 questions. Now, when I do sales, all I do is I use exactly the same methodology and I coach them to buy from me. So I think sales and coaching are the same thing. And I've spent my entire life in sales. Yeah. Because and so I suppose in a way I don't actually, if that model of client-centric coaching, which is you just ask questions and you help the client to, I haven't got any coaching qualifications, and the idea of I have opinions. I suppose I'm more of a mentor because I like that whole idea of just
hire me. I have opinions and I can give some to you.
It's like, I know what your problem is. I can help you fix it. I can help you get out of your own way. But and so if I'm doing coaching, if you like, quite often people say, Dom, that's brilliant. Just tell me the fucking answer. Right. And so that I think is so my sales process is really just coaching. And so when people have gone through our sales process, mm-hmm. they've got a sense of what it will be like to be coached, because that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get you to understand tell me what your problem is. Tell me about your business. Tell me what you love about it. Tell me about what the future looks like. And that's what we do. So, and then I do some sales training, but I will never train salespeople. I'll only train non-sellers, because I think there's enough people, if you want to get sales training, somebody else. But if you're not a salesperson and you're allergic to selling, I can help you feel much better about sales and do it well.
Mm-hmm. I might have a few people to introduce you to. Another thing that you mentioned is that some of your clients, which seem to be big time names, are working with you for like 10 years. And the real growth, and you would know that, happens when you're able to retain customers on top of acquiring new ones. How do you retain them? Like how do you do that?
I think the way we work is we'll sign up a client, sign up a CEO and a leadership team. Mm-hmm. And the way we do it is we say, look, come down to the farm. We do a 2-day kickoff. We'll end up with a 1-page strategy, and then we'll work with you to implement it. And so if you fire us in the first 90 days, then that's fine. No hard feelings. It wasn't for you. It was, we might fire you too. It's only happened once. But and then after that, we're on for 12 months, because it's a bit like learning a new golf swing or holding your tennis racket. I'm going to teach you that you're incompetent at something you didn't even know you were shit at. And I want the opportunity to get you out the other side, because I'm going to take you down before we come back up again. And so so we sign up for 12 months. And then I think in about 9 months, people have worked out, is this for them or not? And we do have some clients that have dropped off at the end of 12 months. And that's, again, my curiosity kicks in and I go, what could we have done differently? How could we have made that better? How could we have helped them so that they got more value and didn't drop off? Yeah. And I was just actually using Claude Code to analyze my data out of my accountancy product yesterday to look at some of that, and to see, has it got better over time? And it has. And so I think people renew if you're getting value. If you've helped them identify the problem and they feel like they're making progress. And I do think that, however much progress they think they've made in year one, if I look at clients in year 2 or year 3, they make way more progress in year 2 and year 3. It's just hard to tell them how much progress they're going to make, because I can see it, but they can't see it yet. But when they look back, they go, okay, look how embarrassing we were when we turned up, and I've got the sort of model Land Rover that's on there. There's a note on it from Jerry Toombs. It says, "Thank you for turning us into a proper business." He had a successful exit on the back of spending a few years with us. So that's fab. And so I don't take it for granted. Once people have gone through 12 months, we're just on a 90-day rolling contract. So we've got to keep delivering value. Otherwise, people will leave.
Let me throw a little bit of a curveball question at you, Dom, because you have it all nailed down. I mean, you've done it multiple times. You've helped multiple people do it multiple times. What's your number one challenge? What's the one nut that you're trying to crack that you haven't cracked yet? And once you crack, you're going to take the whole thing to the next level, whatever that next level is.
Do you know what? We're in that sort of phase now where I was doing some one-to-one coaching, and I flipped that one-to-one model into sort of a group cohort, because when we started, we had this goal. There's a thing called the Scale Up Report, which Sherry Kutu, one of the founders at LinkedIn, wrote for David Cameron's government. And what she said was, Britain doesn't need more startups, it needs more scale-ups. And that's the US economy and the UK economy are different in that they don't have as many scale-ups in the UK. In the US, 7% of US businesses are big, so more than 250. And in the UK, there's only 5%. So she said, we're missing 2,000 companies that should exist that don't. And that would have a transformative impact on the British economy, because scale-ups are where all jobs get created. So I looked at that when I started, and I thought,
taxes are paid.
Well, I thought I'll do 200. I'll do 10% of fixing the British economy on my own. And then last year, I realized we were going to get to 200. We were in touch. We've worked with 186 companies over the last 10 years now. Okay. And so I sat down with my wife and I said, look, the kids are on the payroll for another 10 years. So what should we do? Should we just carry on like this, or should we go 10x the whole thing? We're going to try and work with 2,000 scale-ups in the UK in the next 10 years and 10x our impact. And she said, yeah, fuck it, let's do that. So we're in this phase now where we can't work with any more larger, CEO leadership teams. That's probably going to be sort of 10 at a time. But we've now got a group program, and that we can scale that. And we've got an online program that we can deliver globally. And so we're in this building out and scaling up phase, because otherwise we can't get our goal of 2,000 in the next 10 years, or sort of 10 to 25 years. So, it's Jim Collins, B. Hag, 10 to 25 years. That's our goal.
So I don't know how we say in English, you stole the words out of my mouth. This is not a challenge. This is a goal. So how are you gonna achieve that goal, Dom?
Well, I think it's only 200 a year, and I've only done 186 in 10 years. So it's 10 times quicker than I've done it before. But that group model, That yes, well, yes, but if it was easy, like everyone would have done it, and it wouldn't be a challenge, eh? So, so I just look at that and I say, well, you got to start. So let's start. Let's kick off the cohort. So we had 14 people here in January on the farm for a day. So it's first of all, it's like get one group running, decide what the model looks like. If that works, then scale it. So that was the first time we'd run ads. We've got another one in April. We're running some ads. So that my curiosity kicks in. Like we're running Meta. I'm learning stuff that we didn't have to do before, which is fab. I think we can make it work. And then we've got to see. Well, so that's just gonna go really hard, go really fast. Life's really busy. That's great. Well, when I started at Peer 1, right? In 2009, the guy said, look, do you reckon you could build a competitor to Rackspace, the business you'd built before? And I went, yeah, okay. I've done a bit of market research. I think we could do that. We are starting from zero though. And they said, well, we'll give you $10 million to do it. Do you reckon that's enough? And I'm, yeah, that'll be fine. And I remember sitting in a hotel, and I hired Jason Vigas, the first guy I hired, and we had no office. We hadn't even registered a company, and I'm hiring somebody. And I interviewed him, and he said, "Yeah, I'm in." And I just thought, "Oh, this is amazing! Like we better now succeed, because he had a job and he's got a wife and 2 kids. Like but this is serious now." And so it's this. I've got this same excitement again. Going, can we get to 2,000? I don't know. I'll give it a try. When we started at Peer 1, it's like, okay, did we think we'd get to 30 million and 120 people and build the greenest data center in Britain? We had no idea, but that's all right. You just start and be ambitious.
Amen to that. Dominic Monkhouse, ladies and gentlemen. Dom, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, on top of searching on cloud or ChatGPT, where should they go?
Do you know what? The thing about having a name, I think I am the only Dominic Monkhouse in the world. So anything you can search in brings you back to me, brings you back to the website. You can hit me up on the website. You can call me on my mobile phone. You can ping me on LinkedIn. Whatever.
We'll put all the links in the description. If you want to be one of those 2,000 British company to become a scale up and actually move the needle for the British economy, you know who to reach out to. Dom, this was fun, as I anticipated. Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Oh, great fun.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.